Human trafficking is the fastest growing crime in the world. Does anybody have a guess of what the #1 crime in the world is?
Drugs?
Drugs. You nailed it. It's drugs. But it is believed that human trafficking is going to win over drug trafficking in a matter of 10 years.
Wow.
And it's complicated why that's going to happen, but let me just illustrate. What's your name? Tanya is a drug trafficker. Oh, you don't want to tell people?
No.
I didn't need to out you.
No, it's cool, it's cool, it's cool.
Tanya and I go way back. Because I've known her for a while, so it's cool. Tanya is a drug trafficker. Here's the difficulty with Tanya's money-making scheme. One, to get the drugs is very difficult because since the 1980s, there's been this huge national war on drugs. If anybody was here around Reagan, nod your head. I'm too young. And so there's this massive, the whole country is trying to battle drugs. And so you've got the Coast Guard that blocks all of the waters, and you've got people monitoring Mexico and all the underground tunnels, and it is tough to get the product here. Right, Tanya? Are you frustrated? Not only that, but when Tanya sells that product, it's gone. So she's got to go back and try to get more. Not only that, but if anybody understands this, nod your head, more than 80% of the prison system is filled with people connected to the drug trade. Right? Because there are severe consequences for being in the drug trade. And Tanya is freaking out. Right? And you've got to figure out what is a better way to make some money. I'm here to help you. This is why I'm here. Not only that, but Tanya knows that when she gets arrested in the state of Maryland, I'm going to get a little bit technical here, but it's important to understand, what happens is they take all of her money. They take all of her houses, they take all of her cars, because Tanya shouldn't get to keep any money that she makes from the crime, right? So she loses everything she has. She goes to prison for a long time. It's tough to get the product in, and when she does get it, she has to sell it. She's got to go back and get more. It's a tough job, right? Man, it's rough. What she's learned is, instead of selling drugs, you can sell a human being. And a human being is easy to get because these little 12, 14-year-old girls are just looking for someone to say, I love you. And so you recruit a girl, you can sell her over and over and over and over again. So you don't have to worry about going to get new product. Not only that, but in the state of Maryland, human trafficking is only a misdemeanor.
What?
Wow.
What? No.
In the state of Maryland, human trafficking is only a misdemeanor. What does that mean? That means that 2 years ago when a firefighter was arrested for running a brothel in an abandoned warehouse in Baltimore City, he spent 1 day in jail.
Oh,
Wow.
my goodness.
And
Macaroni.
then they won't give you life for killing a guy.
No, it's macaroni.
Right?
We gotta change that. We gotta change that.
Yeah.
So Tanya's not worried about the legal consequences because even if she does get caught, she might spend 1 day in jail. She doesn't have to worry about getting new product because she could use the same product over and over and over again, and when she's sick of that one, she just goes out and get another one because there's always going to be vulnerable 12, 14-year-old girls.
Or even use that one to recruit other ones.
Well, we're going to get there.
Yeah.
Don't skip ahead. You're
Oh,
giving
I'm
out
sorry.
my good stuff. I got to build anticipation.
Oh,
Let's go do something.
But now we're going to go back to if you're selling drugs, you lose all of your money, right? They take away all of your money. In the state of Maryland, oh, and I forgot to mention this, all that money seized from the drug trafficking goes into the war on drugs. So the drug trafficker is paid to fight the crime, which makes sense, doesn't it?
And sometimes police officers do keep it.
Well,
That's
true.
another
That's
story.
true.
That's
There's
another
the shady
story.
ones. Yeah.
It's terrible, but it is true.
With human trafficking, though, the only thing that is taken from her is what is on her body at the time of the arrest. The average human trafficker makes about $2 million a year. I don't know about you, but I don't carry my $2 million in my pocket. If anybody does, I work for a nonprofit, raise your hand. I could... And so she only loses what's in her pocket at the time that she's arrested. And any money that they do take away from her, it goes into the general budget, so it's used to pave our roads. And organizations like the Samaritan Women doesn't get any government funding to do the work that we do. It's all just community members helping to support us. All right, let me see. I'll tell you that for trafficking victims, only 1 to 2% of them are ever even rescued.
Mhm.
And the average age is 12 to 14.
Wow.
All right. When you think about human trafficking, if you've ever heard about it or seen movies, like have you seen that movie Taken?
And take
Liam
it.
Neeson?
Yes.
Although I have a specific skill set. What does he say? Anyway. So when you think of human trafficking and you think of, like someone mentioned, that the pedophile flies overseas to rape the little kids. And I'll tell you, I've actually seen this firsthand because I had the opportunity to go to Thailand, and me and my husband were just there for 24 hours. Now, I'll tell you, my husband thinks I'm a weirdo. Because everywhere I go, I always see human trafficking. Because this is my job, right? So we're driving down the street and you see Asian massage. I'm like, that's normal. And my husband's like, stop it, human trafficking, you're such a weirdo. So here we are in Thailand. And if you've ever heard of international trafficking, you might have heard that the Bangkok, Thailand is one of the worst places in the world for trafficking. My sister-in-law doesn't know anything about human trafficking, and she booked a hotel for us because she lives in Asia. My husband's Chinese. I call my babies my bananas because they're yellow and white. And so my sister-in-law, who lives in Asia, she booked a hotel for us, and it was like dirt cheap. It's a 5-star hotel. It was amazing. And it was so dirt cheap, and she's like, I don't know why this is so cheap, but I booked it for you. It was one of those hotels where you walk in and there's no window, and I'm like, how could there not be a window? Like, this is a nice hotel. And my husband like bumps up against a button, and the whole wall goes up, and it's nothing but a whole wall of windows. It was amazing. It was amazing. And then I find out the reason it's so cheap is because it was in the red light district of Bangkok. So we go down to it's like this concierge guy who can help you book tours, and we're only there for 24 hours. Thailand is dirt cheap, so we could like do whatever we wanted for like, $40. And so we're like, well, so what do you offer? And he's like, oh, well, you can ride an elephant, you could ride a boat, you could do the river market, I could call you a girl, I can order you food.
Call you a girl.
It was just part of the tour. It was just so normal. And so I'm like, you know what, I'll take it all except for the girl, you can keep, But I want to ride the elephant. And so then, after we decide what we're going to do the next day, we go out to dinner. And at this point, my husband still thinks I'm a weirdo, because I'm like, this is the red light district. He's like, stop it. So then we go to sit at this restaurant, and right near us is this old white guy and this little tiny Thai girl, and what was obviously her pimp, her madam. And we know that because you could overhear the conversation and the way that this gentleman is talking about this little girl with the madam, and just like the nature of saying like, oh, so is she being compliant? Oh yes, she's been very nice and very, and it was just, my husband's like, I think this is human trafficking. I'm like, I know, I'm not weirdo. So then we go out of the restaurant and we want to go to the night market. And if you've never seen on TV a Asian night market, it is like mile after mile of all these stalls with like, hand-carved painting or hand-carved figurines and paintings and fake Gucci's. No, I'm not telling you if I bought one, okay?
But it's crowded with people.
It is, and they've got designer knockoff of anything you can imagine. It was the coolest thing.
It is so
It was
crowded.
cool. But that's all on the left side. And on the right side is strip bar after strip bar after strip bar. And I'm telling you that we're walking past these little kids, and it's girls dressed up in their little booty shorts and their go-go boots. And right next to them is girly boys, because in Thailand, that's what they're known for. Boys are kidnapped out of local villages, and they are dressed up as girls. And so it's called girly
So
boys.
they're girly boys.
And they're just little kids, and it's just normal. Everybody's just walking around like it's normal to see these little kids lined up one after one to purchase. But the one that got me they're for sale. They might as well have price tags on them. They're just standing out there waiting for someone to buy them.
They walk up and down constantly.
Yeah, that's why you go to the night market. You buy your fake Gucci and you buy a girl. Or girly boy. And yeah. But the part that got me the most was when I'm walking back to the hotel, and we're walking towards the elevator, and the elevator doors open, and this young Thai girl walks out, and the way that she's dressed, it's obvious what she was doing. But she's walking towards us, and we're walking towards her, and as we're getting closer, at one point, she stops, and she clenches, and she stands up, she kind of fixes herself, and then she keeps on walking. And to this day, this was 4 years ago, I'll always remember thinking, what was done to her? Up on that elevator, what was done that she was in so much pain that she just had to stop and clench and then just keep on going? I don't know. So we know that this is an international issue, but for a very long time, we didn't know that it happened here in the United States.
I would have been in jail. I would have been in jail. I just couldn't, oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's hard. It's in my mind. And so when I think of trafficking, a lot of people think of the girly boys in Bangkok, Thailand. A lot of people think of the kids that literally have tags around their necks in Cambodia. You know, you think of this, you think of the child slaves in Africa. But in 2010, the United States decided, let's take a look at what's happening within our own border. And when they did that study, what they found is not only is the United States participating in human trafficking, we found out that we are the #1 spender on paying for sex than any country in the entire world.
Wow.
We spend more money than any country in the world on purchasing women's bodies. Not only that, but Atlanta, Georgia is ranked the 4th most common destination to rape little kids. So when you talk about the pedophile that's flying out of the country to go rape little kids, people from other countries are flying into our country to rape our little kids. Go ahead. Next, we don't have time. Next, we don't have time. Sorry, everybody. Keep going. All right. Let's talk. I want to talk briefly about labor trafficking because it is an issue here in the United States. So when you think of labor trafficking, just think like the 1800s slave labor, because it's still happening today. Huh? Yep, it sure is. But just because there's laws doesn't mean anybody's following it.
I mean, yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because I'll tell you right now, there are more slaves throughout the world. There's estimated at least 32 million slaves around the world. Do you know how many slaves there were during the entire 400 years of when Africans were ripped from their country and put into the colonies, including America? There's less than 4 million. Over a 400-year period, there was only 4 million slaves ripped from Africa, which is a huge number. But today alone, there's 32 million slaves around the world. So what does their day look like? Well, I'll tell you, for example, Walmart bought clothing from a company that made the clothes in Bangladesh. And that building where the people worked, they worked for 16-hour days. Has anybody had a 16-hour day? Because I have never worked that one. It's a long day. It is a long day.
Yeah, very long.
Every day. Every day. They do that every day. Okay? Most of the time, they're forced to sleep in the warehouse that they're working in. They're only given the food that the owners provide, so it's very minimal. They never get to see their families unless their families are working within there. But I bring up this particular building that Walmart was purchasing from because what happened was they don't want the people to escape, and so you're locked in this warehouse. You're locked in the warehouse, and it caught fire. And over 200 people were killed in that fire because nobody unlocked those doors.
What company was that?
I don't remember. It was a smaller manufacturing company that Walmart had outsourced.
They still buying from the people.
They're not supposed to.
I'm not shopping with them.
They're not supposed to.
That's
Yeah. All right, next slide. What I want to focus primarily on is sex trafficking because Baltimore has it here. When you think of sex trafficking, it's happening through child pornography or child exploitation and forced prostitution. What we work with primarily is pimp-controlled prostitution. You might see sex tourism where groups like, they might be traveling here to Baltimore to play in the casinos. Or they might be on a cruise that leaves out of the Baltimore harbor, and when they stop on part of their tour is to purchase women. We have the block. Do you think people are going there because they want to see a couple movies? Nobody thinks that. We all know what's happening. Because you're the strip club. And we have residents that were trafficked on the block. And I'm sure anybody here knows that strip clubs is not just for looking. And if there's anybody that you know that thinks that strip clubs is not contributing to human trafficking, please tell them it's not true. And that there is an expectation that within your first week of working at the strip club, you will be participating in prostitution, or you won't work there. That makes me so angry because the police department is right there. Like, they know what's happening, and they're doing nothing. They're doing
They
nothing.
have put them in there.
I know, I know.
They're buying them.
And you wonder why victims don't come forward. Escort services or major sporting events, truck stops. Does anybody know where Jessup, Maryland is?
Yes.
Oh, you're naughty because you've heard about this. There's
I've
this.
seen it.
You've
When I
seen it?
was like 6 and 7.
Really? Do you want to share about what you saw?
Not really.
Yeah, that's cool. But I'll tell you, there's this amazing organization called Truckers Against Trafficking. You've heard of them? Oh, they're fantastic. But what they have shared with us is that now traffickers have produced this cute little sticker. So if you don't want to be bothered by one of their girls, then you just put this little sticker in your window and they won't knock. Otherwise, they assume you want to purchase a girl because it's that common. It's that common. Military bases, Fort Meade, which is about 20 minutes from here, you know where that is? Well, I'll tell you, one of the military guys there went to Ohio, kidnapped 2 girls, had them in a hotel across the street from Fort Meade, so during the lunch breaks he could send his buddies over there to have a good time. Brothels, social media, high schools, traffickers are calling high schools buffets now because they've got so many to choose from. Go ahead. Huh? This is a lot of wording. I include this slide because I want you just to understand from our perspective the difference between prostitution and human trafficking. Because what the Samaritan Women believes is prostitution is just when there's an equal exchange of one person and one act. Okay? It becomes human trafficking when there's a third party involved. So the guy or the bottom bitch who's just saying, oh, let me just post your pictures, then it becomes human trafficking. Let me just handle the money for you to help you out, then it becomes human trafficking. Okay? Go ahead, next slide. All right. Who are the, you can go, that's fine. Who are the traffickers? I think this is one of the most important slides that you're going to see today because I want to make sure everybody here understands that traffickers are not the Snoop Dogg rappers, African Americans who have the gold chains and the, what's that hat called, fedoras and the cane. Okay, because 50% of traffickers are female, 30% of traffickers are family members. This woman right here was selling her 2 little girls while she worked for a nonprofit, the Free Drug Habit. Okay, so it's not the stereotype that you think. Go ahead, next slide.
Now, like that older gentleman,
Young
Yeah.
kid.
He was a pedophile that was selling little kids and producing child pornography.
that's what, oh, gee.
Here are just some examples of some Maryland cases. This woman right here, okay, she has been arrested for running brothels 3 times. 3 times she keeps getting arrested and they don't do anything. The final time, which was in 2015, they did shut down her brothel that was in Towson. She has 4 others in Baltimore City. She's not hurting.
Wow.
She's not hurting. And do you know what they did to pick her on to get that brothel shut down? She didn't display her massage license properly. That's all they could get her on.
Wow.
That's all they could get her on. These 2 people down here had kind of taken in a mentally disabled woman as part of, and her requirements for being in the family
Wow.
was to prostitute herself. Next slide, please. Oh, this just happened. Does anybody know where Prince George's County is? Kind of
Yeah.
closer to DC. They just did this arrest last month. It's been about 4 weeks now, where they rescued 40 women and girls. Next slide.
Heard that.
You heard about that? Yeah, I was in the news. Yeah, all right. So let's talk about demand, because human trafficking would not exist if there was not someone willing to pay for a human being, right? If you didn't have a buyer, you wouldn't have a seller. And if you don't have a seller, then you don't have a recruiter, and you don't have to worry about the little girls being raped. All right, next slide. So who are the buyers? They're the cops, the school teachers, they're political
Attorneys.
people, attorneys, right? It could be anyone. Any age, from, our residents have seen 15 to 85. They've had it to where daddies bring their sons and they share a girl in order to make him a man. I'll tell you that for the women I've worked with, most of their buyers were married or in a long-term relationship. Some of the most busiest times of the week is actually Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 and then 4 to 6 because it's part of the commute on the way to work or on the way back from work. Next slide. Who are the buyers? You might recognize them. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen came out and admitted that for 3 years he knew he was HIV positive and yet still purchased women. That's very significant because what that says is he paid for her, therefore she is a commodity, therefore any consequence on her is not his problem because he paid for her. She's nothing more than a piece of property up on a shelf that he can choose. I want that one, that one, that one. She's not a human being.
He's a new face on the block. He was in the show.
Lamar?
Dogger.
Uh-huh.
It started
Yeah.
with his sister.
I used to watch
Sorry.
him. Yep.
Doing things to his sister.
I
Yes.
couldn't believe it when
Now
I,
that is molestation. That's not
Yes.
when it becomes human trafficking. When it became human trafficking is when it came out about 1.5 years ago, that
Right.
when he was traveling to speak about his parents' show,
Yeah.
or he was part of like this family research, like big time DC job, he was purchasing women while he was traveling.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, one of the women spoke out that he purchased, and she said he wasn't paying for a quickie. When they got into the room, he punched her in the face, he threw her on the bed, he ripped off her clothes, and he brutalized her for an hour. And then threw the money on the bed and walked away. Lamar Odom, does anybody know him?
Mm-hmm. That's what's the name?
Kardashian.
Ex-husband.
You know you're doing a presentation with a room full of women when they say that it's because he's married to Khloe Kardashian. When I do presentations in front of men, they're like, oh, he's a basketball player. So he's a famous basketball player and married to Khloe Kardashian.
Yeah.
And almost a year ago, he OD'd while he was at a brothel outside of Vegas. And what makes me so angry about this particular case is when the media is talking about Lamar Odom overdosing, the media was like, pray for Lamar, he overdosed, oh, but it was at a legal brothel. And they kept emphasizing that it was legal. And they kept emphasizing, pray for Lamar because it's going to be a long recovery. Do you know what they never once said? They never once said, pray for the women that acted as his sex slaves
Yes.
for 3 days until his body shut down.
Wow.
Right.
The
He was there
women
for 3
were
days.
irrelevant because it was a legal brothel. But pray for Lamar because he overdosed.
he shouldn't have took it. He would have overdosed.
I remember seeing that one in the news.
Yeah. But you didn't see anything about the girls, did you?
And like Terry Woods,
Tiger Woods?
Tiger Woods is a golf player.
He is.
I used to work for a pro.
Oh, yeah?
And, yeah,
Jared from Subway, no wonder.
when I was younger.
Oh! Jerry from Subway?
Yeah.
Child porn.
Jerry
Yeah,
from Subway.
Subway, yeah. When he lost dogs.
This a very, very interesting case.
Wow.
Because, one, he started out watching pornography, and pornography is a progressive addiction. So the
Right.
more you use it, the harder you need it.
Yes.
And so for him, it started with pornography, slipped into child pornography, slipped into purchasing young girls. And one of the 12-year-olds came out and said that when he was done with her, he said, "Do you have anybody younger?" But what's very interesting from Jared, he's been convicted, he's admitted to what he's done, but now he's suing one of his victims' parents, saying it's their fault that that girl was vulnerable enough for him to exploit her.
Oh, the sick jerk.
No, he's a sick pervert.
This is important to understand. When you're talking about abusers, abusers will go to any length to defend their behavior. And they will always blame the victim.
They sick.
And this is why the recovery for the women in our program is so intense, because they take that blame from the abuser and they blame themselves because
They
they said it's their
internalize
fault. They internalize it, and it's very, very difficult to overcome that. And then you've got Richard Kemp, who is a high school teacher in Howard County. You know where Columbia, Maryland is? Where Howard County is? Howard County is the wealthiest county in the country. So Howard County, trafficking doesn't happen in our county.
Yeah.
And yet, here you go, Richard Kemp, who's paying for 12-year-old boys and then dropping them off back at school when he's done with them.
Yeah, a teacher.
There
Yeah.
was a teacher in Pasadena,
In Pasadena?
like years ago.
I haven't heard about that.
Northeast High School.
Really?
High school, same thing, same kind of situation.
I'm old school.
Go ahead, next slide. Just limit it on
I'm
that.
same school.
All right, I'm going to talk about a controversial topic. Because I know that in society today, pornography is normal, pornography is healthy for a healthy sex life. Every man watches it, so you just gotta accept it. La 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 la. But let me tell you the truth about pornography. That's not true. Thank you. Thank you. It's not true. Because what the reality is porn is an addiction, and it's progressive. So you might start off with soft porn just to kind of spice up your date night. It's not going to stop there because it's an addiction. And the reality is watching porn long term, it changes your brain the same way that long-term drug abuse changes your brain. When they talk about drugs killing your brain cells, so does porn. And porn changes the way that men view women. And study has shown time after time that as men get deeper into their porn addiction, their level of sadness when they hear about a woman being raped gets less and less, to the point where they really start not caring about if women are being raped or sexually abused because they've seen it so many times. Not only that, but there's been a direct correlation to, as they progressively get worse in their porn addiction, the idea of purchasing a woman, whether she's there willingly or not, gets greater. So for example, there was this pastor, and he was a really successful pastor out in California. He had a wife and kids, and he just kind of had like this American dream, leading people closer to Jesus, doing great, and he developed a porn addiction. And that porn addiction turned into one night where it was Christmas Eve, and his wife and his kids went ahead to the church to get things set up, but he stayed at home and he needed to, prep some things before the service. And it was raining, and in California, people don't know how to handle rain. It doesn't rain there. It's scary. There's water falling from the sky. And it's raining, and he sees this girl standing on the street, and he feels bad for her. And so he says that he pulled over just to give her a ride. He says, "Hey, do you need a ride somewhere?" Because again, this is a pastor, right? And so he's wanting to help someone on Christmas Eve. And she gets into the car, and she looks at him, and she says, $20. And he said, "That is the exact amount of money I had in my wallet," and I said yes. I said yes, and it changed his life. All right, next slide. Pornography's influence on demand, because what's happening in our society is pornography is being so normalized that it's leading to it's leading to people believing it's normal to purchase a woman's body, because she's already become an item for purchase through pornography, and so the next step of purchasing her in real life is just an easy step. And so what you're seeing is almost 90% of all pornography throughout the world is produced here in the United States. I'm going to get a little technical here, so I'm sorry, but we need to understand. The reason that most pornography is made here in the United States is because our laws are so weak to protect women that they produce porn here because they can do whatever they want to a woman's body. And because it's in the porn industry, it's legal. If you were to do the majority of things that's done in the porn movies here in another country, you would be convicted for sexual assault. You'd be convicted of abusing a woman, but it's legal here in the United States. Why? Because the porn industry spends $200 million a year just lobbying Congress to get bills passed to make their industry easier for them. Okay, next slide. Next slide, we already talked about this. All right. Let's talk about the term methodology. What I mean by that is, how do you take a 12-year-old girl, and how do you take this human being who has dreams, has goals? She didn't wake up on her 12th birthday and say, I want to grow up and I want to be prostituted. I want people to treat me like I'm nothing more than a commodity and my worth is only what someone's willing to pay. That's not, she didn't wake up that morning to say that. So what the trafficker has to do is take this little girl who dreams of being a movie star or dreams of being a doctor and strip her of all of her humanity, strip her of all of her hopes and her dreams and her feelings of love and family and acceptance, and make her believe that she is nothing more than what someone is willing to pay. So how do you do that? First, you recruit her, and I'm going to talk about the different recruiting methods in just a moment. And then you pull her away from any kind of social ties she has. So you're going to draw her away from her family, draw her away from any friends, draw her away from any churches or any other clubs that she's associated with, that she feels like he is the only person in her life. Right? And he's going to hold her captive to where she can't get out if she wanted
Like the girl
to.
in, what was it, Chicago or Ohio?
The
For the 10 years, the 3 girls that were.
Lifetime just did a movie on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
they
how the
tore that
one
house
started,
down.
with the red hair. That's how she started.
Yeah.
Young.
But they actually tore that house down. The neighborhood got
I
together
heard.
and tore the house
They
down.
needed to.
Yeah.
They needed to. He's going to humiliate her and break her spirit. This is where there's going to be a lot of physical violence. And then you move her, because you don't want her to, if she does escape, you don't want her to have anywhere to go. So if you take this 12-year-old girl who's never left Baltimore City, if you drop her off in Baltimore City, she's not going to know how to get home. But if you take her all the way out to California, she has no clue where she's at or what she's doing. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. So you move her around, and you increase her dependency on her, on you as the trafficker. So he is her source of food, shelter. If there is any kind of substance abuse, drugs, he's her source for drugs. He's her source for love and companionship because she's lonely. And then you control every aspect of her life. Jean Allard, who founded the Samaritan Women, my organization, one of her first times doing street outreach, there was this girl, and it was obvious that she was being trafficked or being prostituted. And Jean walked up to her and she said, hey, is there anything I could get you? And you would think she would say, hey, do you got any water? Or do you have any food? I haven't ate for a while. Like, that's what Jean expected, that she would need like the basics. Instead she said, can you get me some underwear? Because my pimp won't let me wear underwear. Why does he not let her wear underwear? Because he controls every aspect of her life, and she is not worth the dignity of being able to wear underwear. He controls where she eats, what she wears, who she talks to, if she sleeps, where she's going to sleep, every aspect of her life. We had one resident who got away from her pimp for a few days. And so the friends that were helping her out, they took her to the grocery store to get food to cook that night. And they take her to the grocery store and they say, hey, what do you want to buy? What should we cook tonight? You know, we know that he's been controlling everything you've ate for however long you've been with him. choose whatever you want. The grocery store is yours. She looks around. She gets so overwhelmed at the thought of being able to choose what she could eat that night that she literally crumpled to the ground and broke down. It was overwhelming to her because he had controlled every piece of her for so long. Okay, next one. All right. How are they recruited? Right now, the internet is the #1 method for recruitment out of all of them. And I'll give you an example that almost happened. In Anne Arundel County, is this part of Anne Arundel County or are we Baltimore
We're
City?
right on
This is city.
the.
This is on the line, okay.
500 feet away.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah, it's close. Okay. This little,
Back page,
what's that?
back page.
Back page. Back page, yeah. 12-year-old girl becomes friends with a 19-year-old boy online because, I don't know, who's the young ones here? Don't tell me your age. The young ones have this idea that they've got to post everything on social media. I'm not making eye
Post
contact.
everything on
You
social
got
media.
adults
I'm
that
not
do it
making
too.
eye contact. I'm not
I
calling.
don't post everything
Poor
on
Tanya, you're
social
getting called out for
media.
everything in this presentation.
I'm 21, I'm not stupid.
Oh, you're 21. All right, you're cool, you're cool. I'm in my 20s too.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little believable. It's a little believable.
I would have
believed
think
it.
so.
Thank you. Thank you. You're my favorite. So she becomes friends with this boy who is 19, and he's down in North Carolina. She's here in Anne Arundel County, and you know she's a 12-year-old. Every 12-year-old hates their mom. My boys will not go to that stage, but they're gonna love their mama forever. 12-year-old girl, you know, she hates her mom. They're fighting, la la la. And she's telling this online boyfriend about how much she hates living in Maryland and da da da. And he's painting this beautiful picture in North Carolina of how wonderful their relationship can be. And they're gonna ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after. And she's so excited. And so he sends her a bus ticket to come live with him. And before she gets on that bus, she happened to tell one friend, and that friend ended up telling the teacher. The teacher called the police officer, and the police officer stops her from getting on that bus. But he didn't stop there. What he did is, he called the police down in North Carolina and said, look for this guy because he's going to be at the bus stop. And they got him. And surprise, he was not 19. He was a 28-year-old, and she was going to be the 5th girl in his stable. They use that term stable because the girls working for the pimp are nothing more than cattle, like livestock, right? So she was going to be the 5th girl in his stable. But how many 12-year-olds don't tell that friend who told the teacher that told the police officer?
Not many.
Next slide. This is the one that I personally think is the most psychologically damaging because you really, truly believe with everything in you that this was a legitimate relationship and that the money made by him selling you is being made to build your life, to buy a home and to create a family. Resident after resident after resident has told me how years of being away from their trafficker, they're still in love with him. I had one, Kalina, who said, you know, Melissa, my pimp was not that bad. Everybody else was bad, but we had a real relationship. He was kind of a nice guy. And I said, Kalina, didn't he break your jaw? And she's like, yeah, but I deserve that.
Oh.
She hadn't seen him for 3 years, and she said, I know that what he did to me was hard for me, but I still love him. 3 years, and she's still emotionally connected to him. Because I'll tell you, close to 70% of our residents come from fatherless homes. 50% of our residents come from homes where I think 80% of our residents come from homes where there's substance abuse. So there's severe forms of emotional neglect. And so when a guy comes up to her and he says, I love you, she says, what can I do for you? I had one girl who was in the foster system, and her foster dad had actually trafficked her. And she said, you know, Melissa, he never beat me, he never starved me, he never yelled at me, he never hurt me. Do you know what he did? He said, I love you. And because he said, I love you, she would have given him the world, and she did. And she did. And so this one is a very, very powerful tool. When you groom a girl to believe that you are in this together and you're just trying to build a family, it takes years, years to finally comprehend that he really was very systematic in manipulating you to believe this. Next. And then you got, okay, this is edited for the little church ladies. This is actually the bottom bitch. Has anybody heard the term bottom bitch?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Well, we say bottom girl, okay? Because little church ladies, that's what they like. So for the bottom girl, because hopefully if you are a 12 to 14-year-old girl and you're hanging out in the mall and you're sitting there, this older guy starts walking towards you, there's going to be some alarms that say stranger danger, right? Kind of like quit being a creepo, you need to back it up. But if you're 14 years old and we already know that you probably come from a substance abuse family, so you're kind of on the lower end of poverty, and you're socially awkward, and every teenager feels awkward. I would never want to relive those years in my life. I was not the cool kid in school. And this cool chick walks up to you, and her hair's done, her nails done, she's dressed really cute, she's got a very charismatic personality. She says, hey, you want to hang out? You're going to feel cool. You get to hang out with the cool chick, right? I mean, you guys remember that being a teenager, whatever you could do to get in a cool crowd, right? I never made it.
Neither did I, don't worry about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did.
Who did?
I did.
You did, Tanya! The drug trafficker!
No.
And so you're going to let your guard down a little. If the cool girl wants to be your friend, you're going to let your guard down and you want to party with her. But there's a price to pay to party with her. She's not going to tell you that price up front. But once she's got you hooked, you're in. Go ahead. The bottom girl also does a lot of the enforcing, so that the pimp, the daddy, he gets to be the privilege. Like, oh, if you work hard enough, you make enough money, you can sleep with daddy tonight, right? And the bottom girl is the one that does all the punishing. Yeah, go ahead. And then you've got this dream stealers. I think that term is very interesting. I'll tell you that in almost every single mall in the state of Maryland, we've seen cases where fake modeling agencies want to make you the next American top model. Yeah. In fact, literally last Thursday, a college girl walked up to me and said it had just happened to her in White Marsh.
They have something like that in the Warner Bros. Mall.
Yes.
It's in all the it's in the middle of malls, like in front of stores, and they have applications.
Well, that is unique. I'm talking about the people that just like randomly walk up to you and say, hi, let me make you into a model.
Oh, right.
I mean, if they've got like a stand or a store, then it might be a little bit more legitimate. The best way to figure out if they're legit or not. Huh?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
It doesn't
Absolutely.
really tell you much. It just has a thing you fill out, put your name, your address, all that on there.
The best way to figure out if they're legit or not is whether or not the first thing they ask is, where is your legal guardian? Because if they don't care that you're under 18 and your legal guardian is not with you, they're not legit. Because a legit modeling agency is going to want you to be in a contract before they do anything with you. Otherwise, it's a waste of their time. So if you want to tell all of your young nieces and kids or whatever, if someone approaches you and they don't immediately ask for your guardian, it is not legit. I don't care if they have a stand, I don't care if they have a brochure and a website and a business card. Go ahead. All right. In the beginning, I know we've been going a while. In the beginning, I talked about the 3 ways you have to prove that you're a trafficking victim. It was force, fraud, and coercion. I just want to, we have time, so I want to briefly talk about what each of these 3 look like and how difficult it is from a legal perspective to prove whether or not someone was a trafficking victim. So the first one is force, which I think is kind of, we can understand what this looks like. You've got the beatings and the rapes. The most common form of force that we've seen with our residents over and over again is starvation. Because I will tell you, if you've never been truly hungry, it is a powerful, powerful tool to get someone to do what they might not normally do. But also, what you might not be aware of is branding. Because if you go back to the idea that the person being trafficked is nothing more than a commodity, nothing more than like a livestock. If you are a farmer and you own a bunch of cows, what's the first thing you're gonna do? You're gonna brand them. So nobody can take your cow. Nobody can take your product. They all know that cow belongs to me, it's got my brand on it. And you're gonna see that with women being trafficked as well.
Where does drug addiction come into that?
So drug addiction could be a part of coercion. Some of our residents, depending on where they're trafficked, West Coast, you're gonna see less substance abuse with women being trafficked because they like their girls clean, because it prolongs the product. She's not on drugs, she's gonna last longer. So they'll actually, we've had cases where they actually pay her to go to drug rehab to get her clean so they can work her longer. On the East Coast, they're gonna forcefully get her addicted to drugs so they can keep her controlled longer. Fraud, this is where the boyfriend methods comes in. This is very, very difficult from a legal perspective. How do you prove that the favor you did for your boyfriend was really manipulation and that you really believed when he said that we're building a life? How do you prove that and that it turned into fraud? You know, you promise of a better life. All right, you've already mentioned Lifetime. So you've seen those Lifetime movies of like these high-end escorts that they meet. All right, we're all, except for Tanya, old enough here to see Pretty Woman, right? Has everybody seen Pretty Woman except for Tanya? I don't know.
No?
See, this is what I mean.
No, don't
These
watch
young
movies
people.
like that. I'm not a movie person. Movies for real guys. I don't watch movies.
This notion that you're gonna get this rich man and he's gonna purchase you, but then he's gonna fall in love with you and change your life and you're gonna live in the mansion.
Yeah.
And that is just not the reality. But that's what we picture. It's a great way to pay for your college tuition. And then you've got coercion. This goes back to the example I said earlier, where a girl is raped and is videotaped, and then they say, if you don't work for me, I'm going to show it to everybody. You might threaten her sister, if you don't work for me, I'm going to go after your sister. Go ahead. One of the more powerful tools that a trafficker uses is to get her bonded to him so she won't go work for someone else or she won't leave him. And so some of the things that we've seen, as you mentioned in the back, is to force them to become drug addicts, and he's her supply. So whenever she needs her next fix, she's going to go back to him. He might get her arrested and then come and rescue her because he wants to be her superhero, right? He's her protector. Oh, you got arrested? Let me come and let me rescue you, right? You know the song. I'm just a phone call away. No? Everybody knows that song?
Yeah, I know
Yes.
that song.
This just got embarrassing.
I
Tanya!
know that's.
Thank you. Finally, Superman's got nothing on the trafficker.
Superman's got nothing on it.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Who sings it? I don't know. Someone cool.
Somebody. Charlie.
Hey.
Who was it?
Charlie Puth.
Yeah.
See, you know what I'm talking about, Tanya. She's my BFF. You didn't know? So he's gonna get her arrested intentionally so that he can be her rescuer, her
No, because it's
superhero.
only a misdemeanor, so,
Well,
Yeah, right.
you know, or.
I'll tell you, most of our residents have a very difficult legal background because it's not just prostitution or solicitation that's on their record. Could be something about like selling drugs. You might use her as a drug seller.
Shoplifting.
At shoplifting. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that just because she's being sold for sex, he might also have her just participate in a lot of other things, and she's the one that gets caught, and it's on her record forever. I'll tell you, another huge issue that most people don't think about is most of our residents come to us with a tremendous amount of debt. Because a trafficker is not going to buy a car in his name, he buys the car in her name. But when she comes to us, sometimes she doesn't even have flip-flops on her feet. She doesn't have that car, but she signed that name, and so for the rest of her life, she still has to pay for that car, whether she has it or not. If he gets a credit card, he's not going to get the credit card in his name, he's going to get it in one of his girls' names. And so she comes to us with a tremendous amount of credit card debt, even though she comes to us without flip-flops on her feet. The medical records are in the tens of thousands of dollars from the life that she was in. Next. All right. Who are these women that we work with? Go ahead. Before they come to our program, that they've been in the life for 4 to 8 years. The average age that they come to us is about 20, so you can imagine how young they were when it first started. Go ahead, next slide. When they come to us, the mentality that we often see is there's a huge distrust of health providers or government or police. Why? Because a lot of times they're the ones paying for them. They're the ones purchasing them. Right? I think that I want to talk about self-esteem for a minute, because I think that this is a mentality or assumption that a lot of people make, that if you're a human trafficking victim, you look like you're the kind of girl that sits in the corner, huddled, you can't make eye contact because of the trauma that you experienced, and you have no social interaction, you don't like people, you flinch at anything. And that's just not always true. Is it true sometimes? Yeah, sometimes it is. But I will tell you that the women we work with are the greatest survivors you'll ever meet. When the zombie apocalypse happens, I'm running straight to work, because those ladies are going to know how to survive the zombie apocalypse. Okay?
Good point.
It's happening, people. It's happening. Walking Dead, anybody? Come all alone?
No.
Come on, Tanya.
No.
Tanya, please!
No.
I've seen it a couple
I
times.
don't
Thank
watch
you.
that.
Yes.
My sister watches it, but I don't.
So just because they don't look like victims doesn't mean that they're not. Because I'll tell you, going back to the whole self-blaming thing, a lot of times they blame themselves for what happened, so they've had to figure out how to survive the situation that they were in.
I've done that before.
Faked it? Yeah. Yeah, you have to learn to survive. And so you put the brave face on and you keep on going. Right? Right. There's a tremendous fear of safety for their family and for their kids. A bonding tactic that I didn't talk about earlier is sometimes the trafficker will intentionally get her pregnant by him. Why? Because you can only threaten a woman so many times, and you can only beat her so many times to where she's just over it. Like, you broke my jaw, you sent me to the hospital, you've done this and this, what else are you going to do? You threaten her child, and she will go to the ends of the earth to protect that child, right? Not only that, but having a child with him makes him her baby daddy and reinforces this idea that it's a real relationship, because now they're building a family. And I'll also tell you that the vast majority of them do not seek help because they believe that it's their fault. Because to them, they come from a broken home. 98% of our victims were sexually abused as children. And so they come from broken homes. 70% did not have fathers in the home. They come from substance abuse. And so they grow up in this broken environment, and then they have this guy that's finally showing them the love that they've never experienced before. So they don't know what a healthy relationship is because they've never had it. And so him asking her to sell her body to pay the cell phone bill is not that far-fetched, because daddy would rape me and then bring me a chocolate bar. So there's already an exchange for sex from a young age. So when they do get to the point where the boyfriend asks them to do something for an exchange, it's normal behavior. And so because of that, there's this idea that it was their choice to sell their body to pay for the cell phone. And it's difficult to understand how the boyfriend was orchestrating it from the very beginning. Go ahead, next slide. All right. Here are just some stats about the women, about trafficking victims. 85 grew up where there was substance abuse in the home. I had that stat wrong. I'll tell you that a lot of people think that trafficking victims, if you think of like the image of a woman being prostituted walking on Wilkins Avenue, they got the tracks all up and down their arms, and they obviously have substance abuse issues. And so that's what your image is of like a woman being prostituted. But the reality is only 50 to 60% of the women we work with actually have substance abuse issues. And I will tell you, once they've given tangible tools to deal with the trauma that they've experienced, even less of them consider them addicts by the time they leave our program, because they don't need the drug to deal with the trauma anymore, because they have the healthy tools to deal with that. Go ahead, next slide. There's a lot of people out there today that say, oh, we need to fight for sex workers' rights and we should legalize prostitution because it's a woman's right to sell her body if she chooses, and it's a legitimate way to make money, and da-da-da-dee-da-da-dee-da. This right here is the face of prostitution. This is, if you haven't figured it out yet, the girl on the left is the same girl as the girl on the right. This is less than 3 years. These are her mugshots of every time she was picked up for solicitation or prostitution. And I want you to realize how difficult it is when a human being becomes a commodity. Because this girl right here could be my 14-year-old neighbor, right? And the thing about this first mugshot that gets me with her is you can tell that she has not been in the life for long because her hair's not professionally done. You know, it looks like she just got up, combed it before she went to school. She's wearing a collar, so there's an element of modesty. And there's a sadness in her eyes of saying, please someone look at me and see me and help me. But then you get over here and there is no hope in those eyes. There's no hope because she has internalized the belief that she is nothing more than what someone is willing to pay. You talk about sex workers' rights being a legitimate form of business. People purchasing a woman's body is not buying a quickie. They're buying someone that they can treat however they wish. And so then you have this girl who from this picture to this picture, it's not super clear, but at some point her jaw gets broken. And notice it never gets fixed. And every single picture, here, you've got black eyes in every picture. This is violent. This is violent and abusive. And then up here, you just see what happens when drug abuse is entered into the picture. Next slide. I want to talk about this girl right here. I don't know this girl, but I know Song. Song was in our program for 364 days. And on the night of her 364th day, she sat on her bed, and the shame and the pain and the hurt of a lifelong of abuse and trauma was weighing heavily on her that night. And she sat on her bed and she thought about how tomorrow is going to be my 1 year, and I don't feel like I have accomplished enough. And the Samaritan women are wasting their resources on me, and I don't deserve it. And so she left a note saying, I am not worth your love, and I'm not worth your time, and I'm not worth all of the gifts that you've given me. So give everything you've given to me to someone that deserves it. And in the middle of the night, in February, in Baltimore, she walked out that door and went right back out on the streets and started using again. And the reason I share Song with you is because Song stayed in contact with us because the Samaritan Women was her home. And so she would call and say, I miss home, how's my family? Because we work as a family there. You know, all the residents, we call each other sisters, and you know, it's just this family dynamic. And so she would call to see how home is, and I missed home. But she didn't feel worthy to come home, even though we said, Song, come home. And so months later, we get a call from Song again. And of course, we're thrilled to hear from her. But she wasn't calling from a hotel room that she had paid for. And she wasn't calling from an abandoned row home in Baltimore City. She was calling from a hospital. Because a man had brutalized her so terribly that he had ripped out all of her hair but a few patches.
Is that one?
Yeah.
This is the same girl. And I remember that day so clearly when they told me what had happened to Song, because I was so close to Song. And I remember that day so clearly because I was sitting around with some of the residents and we're just processing through this. And I asked them, when do you get to a point where a man brutalizes you so bad that you don't even have hair left, and the first call you make is not 911? If that happened to me, I would call 911 because I would want the police out there hunting this predator down. Because I wouldn't want it to happen to anybody else, and I would want him to face justice for what he did for me. And I asked the residents, I said, when do you get to a point where that's not your first phone call? And instead, your first phone call is just to say, hey Mom, I'm just calling in to check in on my TSW family because I'm lonely right now being in the hospital. And all of them very quickly said, it's just the price of being in the life. You expect this to happen. This is normal. Go ahead, next one. What's that?
I said, I don't even know how somebody could be strong enough to pull your hair out of your head.
It's possible.
It's difficult to comprehend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? These are just some of our stats. The average age of intake for us is between 21 and 26. 96% of our victims were victims of child molestation. 38% of them were trafficked by their family members. 70% of them came from fatherless homes. 50% are self-injurers. We've had residents come in where they test in at the 3rd grade reading and writing level, and we've had residents who have master's degrees and were certified geniuses. They're called MINSAs. I say that to say trafficking victims don't come from just the poorest neighborhoods of our country. They come from every area of our country. I'll tell you that oftentimes our residents have been diagnosed before they get to us with their bipolar, depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Of all of the residents that we've worked with, only one has actually been legitimately bipolar. It's because when you see a woman who has really, really happy times and then she crashes and burns, and happy times and then she can't deal with it, she looks bipolar because she's so happy and energetic and then she's totally depressed and can't get out of bed. But when you walk her through the trauma that she's experienced and help her to deal with it and give her tools to handle the anxiety that she's been working through, she's not bipolar. She's traumatized because her daddy's been raping her since she was 5, right? Give her some tools to deal with that trauma and she'll be okay. And like I already said, outstanding survival skills. We're right up off of 695. If zombie apocalypse happens, come hang out with us because we're gonna make it. We got some survivors. All right, next one. The average age of death for a woman being prostituted is 34 years old. And the life expectancy is only 7 years. Prostituted women suffer from a homicide rate 51% higher than that of someone working in a liquor store. This one I say because people still make the argument that we should legalize prostitution. So we should legalize an industry where women aren't getting killed in abused.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're with me. Go ahead, next. Where are we on time? Can't see. Huh? 20:02. All right. We're going to keep going then. I don't have time for this. Keep going. All right. Let me talk just quickly about the Samaritan women and what we do. So
Can we focus on recognition and prevention, especially for our children in the community?
absolutely.
Okay.
What I have right here that everybody gets a copy of is kind of a screening guide. It's just a checklist of things to think about when you're encountering someone you think might be victimized. So I have enough for everybody. What I also have here that you can pass out to whoever you want is it's top 5 things everyone should know about human trafficking. It's got my contact info, so if you want to email me or whatever, if you have questions, feel free. And then you also have just some information on the women. So if you wanna pass these out,
Is
whatever.
that the
Absolutely.
barcode? Chris?
Go ahead,
Huh?
you can pass them.
The barcode on the list?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just wondering how we can take that, all this wonderful information, well, terrible information.
Yeah.
Sorry that you have to be the one to share that news with us, but, and then, excuse me, how we can take all that information and then use it to better our community, which is, as you know, this community here is, just, it's saturated.
I have a cousin that's out here on Fairhaven prostituting.
So I'm wondering if you have, from this information, advice to us on, and even how we can keep our young children from, we've got some moms here and
I think
some
that.
people who, even have had certain experiences, so.
Yeah. I think that the most powerful thing that you can do as a parent or a grandma or a community member is monitor what these young kids are doing on social media.
Ah, okay, yes.
It is the most powerful, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, Tanya?
No, I have a question for Ms. Mandy. Is there any way, per Walks on Fridays, we can make copies and pass it around the community?
I
These
can
little
send
papers
you,
right here.
That's a good idea.
Make copies of these and pass them around, that way parents can be aware of their kids.
And then
Mandy,
not
I
to
can
do the
send you
same
an
thing.
electronic version of that, and you can
Absolutely.
modify it for your
Yes.
ministry.
To Chris would be great, yeah, that'd be great,
Show
sure.
to Chris, yeah.
Yeah,
Another thing with the, as far as the kids, your younger kids, you have to also, as a parent, be aware who you have in your house around your children.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Especially if
That's
it's
true.
not there.
Yes.
I mean, the fathers, you can include them too, but if you're a single parent and you met somebody online and you got young daughters, like I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
I have a 23-year-old son. And I told him, none of your little friends are to come here because you have sisters.
That's right.
And a lot of people don't know this, I don't share with a lot of people. My daughter, she's 25. She's involved with a pedophile. He's been on the box and everything. She is not allowed to visit with her teenage sisters. I mean, she said I'm being selfish, no, I'm being cautious.
Yeah.
Why would you even want to bring your sisters around that, And it's sad because I did not notice about this man. I met him. I knew he was on the box, but they told me he was on the box because he was drinking and driving. I guess she felt guilty about it. But at this point, my daughter had been in Annapolis with her partial of the summer. I didn't know this until, and then she says, well, Mom, James was in trouble for being a pedophile. Okay, and you allowed me to let your sister come down there? I went and got my daughter right away. And it upset me. Because what's going on in your mind? Oh, well, he's fine, he's what you call, reformed. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's got he's registered for the rest of his life as being a pedophile. And as long as she's, I'm sorry to say, involved with him,
Like that, it's a mindset. You can't just turn it on and turn it off when you wanna.
she's not allowed to visit with her sisters, and they're not, and they love her, their sister to death, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm sorry, I can't, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she just got in her mind, well, we won't come to see, I won't come to see.
Well, and that's a powerful example, and the diligence that you're showing with your physical door, you need to show with the electronic door too. There is no such thing as privacy when it comes to their social media.
Oh, I got passwords.
You need all their passports.
I got all of
passwords.
that.
You do, you need to monitor, because that 15-year-old might think she's being best friends with a 19-year-old, but he could be the 28-year-old.
Oh, yeah, I'm on top of it, trust
You have
me.
to,
I'm
you
on
have
top of
to.
that too.
Yep, you have to, yeah.
And you were so right, when the brain actually changes.
Yeah.
Because there's a member of my family who's gone through this whole thing. And he's the predator, or he was the predator, he probably still is in some ways.
Yeah,
But, and he started in pornography when he was 12 years old.
yeah.
And it just progressed into prostitution and keeping
Yeah.
and abuse.
Very
So
difficult.
it changes the brain, and no matter how many times they've been counseled, the brain is just fixed in that system.
So if you're young ones, they'll know what I'm talking about. They use Snapchat. you need to make sure that any Snapchats they send out include to you, if you
Yeah, I
can.
watch my sister.
Yeah.
No, give it to me.
Yep, Instagram, you've got Facebook. What else? Come on, Tanya.
I don't use all
YouTube.
social media, but there's Twitter,
YouTube,
YouTube, Instagram,
Instagram,
Kick,
Kicks.
Snapchat,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn,
All
Tumblr.
that media, all that stuff, yeah.
Websites for
Yeah.
Google
dating.
Circles.
Especially in, you know, if you know your kids are missing class and they're going to the mall, those are big hot spots right there, is when the majority of human traffickers, they come out and they see which kids are the most rebellious.
There's a
Because the
big
most
thing.
rebellious ones are the ones that are most likely to be in that situation. They pick them up at the mall when they're cutting class. They pick them up when they're walking on the side of the street and they're going home. Those are the ones that are most likely to get picked up.
So
So.
pay attention to Pokemon Go as well. Go back. No, I'm serious. That's the big one too.
Really?
What's
Yeah,
that?
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
the big one.
Yeah.
They'll let their kids go out and walk around. They'll find dead bodies or somebody will rob them. Somebody might take them up.
It's terrible.
Because you turn your location on. When you turn location on, anybody who plays can track your phone.
I also want to give the other side of it, because the recruitment, they were vulnerable to be recruited because they experienced trauma early on. And so what I've encouraged you to do is, if you think that someone in your community has been abused, that you would be that safe person to say, I don't care if you think it was your fault, it wasn't your fault. And sometimes that's what a victim needs to hear, is it wasn't your fault. And sometimes a possible recruiter, a girl that could possibly be recruited, just needs to hear I love you. And you be the first person to say I love you instead of a possible trafficker. And you can change your life. Be love to the world, right? Be love to the world. It's the most powerful thing that we can do.
Is this just for the women that's been sex trafficked, or was it for prostitutes too?
Well, I think it depends on what your interpretation of prostitution versus human trafficking is.
Yeah,
The
there's different-
majority of the women working on Wilkins or on Backpage or whatever, we believe that there is an element of trafficking. Yeah.
I mean, what, like, if you know someone and they're out there and they have a gun put up to their face, and you know, can you send them there? You know,
So what
I
I'm
mean,
going to
they're
give to
being
Mandy,
beat up
yeah.
and they've had the gun in their face.
Yeah.
Like, just ready to pull that trigger on her.
Yeah. What I'm leaving with Mandy is, it's a referral guide to see if it's, our program is not designed for, like, it's not a safe house to get her somewhere for like 36 hours or something.
Mhm.
Our program is a long-term program, and so it's gotta be for women that are in a place in their life where they know that they can't
They
be in
wanna
their
get
life
out.
anymore.
Right, they
That
don't
they've
want it
reached
no
their
more,
limit.
right,
And it's their last effort to live life.
okay.
And so it's really gotta be, we have a very, very limited bed capacity. I think we can take in like 8, at the most 10, at our current program, and we have a few more homes that we're opening. So it's very, very limited. It's, and so, yes.
I gotta fix your number.
Human,
What's that?
Fix your numbers.
yes, human
No,
trafficking.
this is on purpose. This is on purpose to help you remember. 888-3737-888. It looks funky,
So,
but now you'll remember it.
let's say you're trying to call the police.
888-3737-888.
That moment where you see them in a car and you're seeing the pimp beating the woman out, and you know, you call 911 and all of a sudden they just drive off and the police are there and they're like, what are you talking about? We don't see anything. So this is a great number to call, is National Human Trafficking Hotline.
Okay.
Instead of calling the police, because if you keep calling the
Because I've
police, they're gonna
seen
over
them.
time, they're gonna
I've
think.
sat on my porch and I have seen a young girl get, I had to turn my head because I didn't know what to do.
I see it all the time, okay?
So, and that well, how would you suggest, because these ladies do get to see this type of thing
Yes.
all of the time, every day. So what do they do? What's the first thing? Of course, call the police.
Yeah.
So you're gonna wanna get information. If you, like Caitlin was saying, if you are sitting there and you see a car, write down the license plate number. Cause you can call
Okay.
and say, I saw a red car. Well, that's super helpful to all 700 red cars on the highway. But if you say, I saw a red car, here's the license plate number.
There you go,
and
good
then
advice.
You can call
Right.
this, or if you are in a situation where maybe you're in a store, you see her come in and you can kind of tell because you saw the branding or something kind of hit you off,
Mhm.
don't intervene because you don't want to get her in trouble for trying to ask for help and then just have her be beaten for your actions. You can watch out the window and see the car, see what the guy looks like she's getting in the car with. Pay attention to all the information, collect as much information as you can, and then call the hotline number, call the cops.
What do you do when they're on foot? They're not in a
You can
car.
pay attention to what they're wearing, you can pay attention to facial features, their height, anything that you would give to a normal police
See,
report.
most of it around in my area is gang.
So
Yeah.
this,
So this
Description
where-
is like a number one thing for a police officer or the hotline. If you can get as much description about that person or a vehicle or, you know, what they're wearing, what their hair color, what they look like. Sometimes race is a little hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
I wanna know what I can
don't know,
do. I have a
but
cousin
the
that's got
description
here
of the
now.
clothing.
Okay.
She's on Fairhaven,
Because
and she's turned herself into drugs, into prostitution.
yeah.
What can I do?
I know that this doesn't sound like a very powerful tool. Even if you were to call the police, because most of these women don't recognize themselves as victims, I'm sure your cousin blames herself, right?
No,
Oh, she doesn't?
no.
Well, that's great.
Not yet.
The
No,
most
she-
powerful thing that any of you can do is to show love,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't feel like they're worth love. Song spent 364 days surrounded by no one but people that are showering her with love, and it was still hard for her to embrace that. Love is the most powerful tool, and hope. If you give them hope, you can call this hotline and they can give you resources for her.
now the paper you gave us.
Because of your area, are you all familiar with Safe House of Hope?
Yes.
Someone mentioned you've been down there.
Well,
Safe House of
I've
Hope would
had
be
response, with my daughter.
great. Deneen Yates is the wackiest person I know, and I love her so much. You know it's true.
I know, I've met her.
I love her.
But, yeah,
Safe House of Hope, I think, because it's a drop-in shelter and Deneen does emergency housing, she's the one that could really help in that emergency situation. And then Deneen oftentimes works with us to when a girl is ready to do long-term restorative care, she'll send her to us.
now that paper, real quick, I've got to go.
Sure.
Right now I'm picking up a teacher. Now, can I get copies of, you know, the paper to give to the teacher that I'm picking up to put out to the school?
So I'm going to send her the electronic copy and she can modify it to fit whatever works best for your ministry.
Okay,
Because right now on the back, it's got the Samaritan women, it might-
okay.
which I'm happy for you to pass out, I mean, I really am. If you want to make copies of that, you might prefer to have one that focuses more on the well, it has the same, I don't know. So I'll send it to her and you guys can modify it
Okay,
for what works
just
best.
figure it out, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
You're a faith-based
we
organization.
are. Yep, yep, I don't know how anybody can bring restoration without Jesus.
It was nice.
Thank you guys so much for having me and for listening. I know it's a long presentation. Tanya?
Hey, is this off? Is this off?
You're awesome. Sorry.
I was gonna close in prayer, but that's okay. That's all right. We'll go ahead. Do we have any announcements? Do we have any announcements?
You don't wanna hear about it.
Tokens to see everybody.
Surgery.
How do we do this?
Reassuring.
How do we stop
Thanks,
this?
everybody.